Got this random urge to make a YouTube video. Let's do it. I've talked a few times about making a video called 25 Things I Do to Make My Life Better That Probably Don't Matter. And there was some interest in the video, so I'm gonna make the video. First, a lot of people have been saying, where have you been? Why aren't you posting? Like on any social media for the last month. So I'm gonna do a quick recap of what I've been doing. It's not that exciting. Let's go. Been lifting, been boxing, been getting bigger, I'm still fairly lean, which is good. Been reading, read this book, really enjoyed this book. Got 16 pages into this book and I'm too dumb. Read this book, which was interesting, and this book, which I thought was very good, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Saw this movie, and it's called The Bronx Tale? The Bronx Tale was the other movie I saw, which I really enjoyed. Got my sleep game super dialed in. I'm sleeping like 7.5 to 9.5 hours a night, which is a lot. I found myself in a ketogenic state twice in the last month, playing around with fasting. I booked a bunch of travel. That's something that I used to do a lot, was plan trips in advance and book them, and then you have something to look forward to, and like the hope and the hype and the camaraderie with the people you're going with of the trip make up like 50% of the value of the trip, rather than just doing things more short-term and impulsively. Week and a half, spend time with my family. This Wait But Why video, which I probably talked about on here, or Wait But Why article that I probably talked about on here. If you don't live in the same city as your parents, by the time you're 18 years old, you've already spent 90% of the days with your parents that you actually have with them. I'll link it below, but that just makes me want to try to spend more time with my family. Doing some impersonal personal training, doing some impersonal nutrition work, online coaching obviously, designing training programs. I actually got a progress picture from client Mark last night, who's down 100 pounds in the last year. Throw that up right here. Give Mark some love in the comments. I am eating carbs again. I will not be intentionally going back into ketosis, but if that's a standalone video that people are interested in, I have a feeling it will be. So after you tell Mark congrats in the comments, let me know if you want to hear about kind of my reasoning as well as thoughts about the ketogenic diet for myself. I can make another video. Spent a few days in Florida, got some vitamin D on my skin, got some serotonin pumping in my brain, got some beach, some ocean, swam in the ocean with the heavyweight champ of the world, Anthony Joshua. Bought these glasses off Amazon. I put them on 1 hour and 30 minutes before bed. They cost $9. Also relevant, I kicked a couple pretty bad habits that I'm not going to talk about in detail here, but at some point I will, and I want to document the date of this and the time of this, so that's why I'm mentioning this video. All right, we're going to start with 5 of the 25 things that I do that marginally improve my life. You guys can let me know if this is interesting or not, and if it's not, cool, we'll scrap it, and if it is, I'll come up with the other 20. Okay, so here's the concept on this video. There are 6 or 7 things that are must-dos that, as a result of the 80-20 rule, these few things lead to the majority of fitness progress, body composition progress. I'm hesitant to even lump the word health in there. Really, I'm talking about getting stronger, getting more aesthetic, getting leaner, having a better life, feeling better, having more energy. So a good chunk of health. But there are a few things, like get stronger at compound moves, get enough sleep, eat micronutrient dense foods, have your calories aligned with your goal, right? If you do these 6 or 7 things, it's going to lead to most of your progress. We're not going to talk about those. What I'm going to talk about here are these little tiny things that I do that I think are contributing in a positive way to my progress over time in some way, even if very marginal, that I think are interesting or unique or might be like a cool take that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, and or that are just heavily debated and I think they have merit, whereas other people say they don't have merit, and maybe you find them interesting and maybe you take something from this and maybe you think it sucks or whatever. We're gonna roll with it. Number 1, let's go. Number 1, I drink an obscene amount of water. I don't actually track, but it's at least, like, it's in the 150 to 250 ounces of water per day. And I don't know why, other than that I feel best doing it, but my intuition led me to do it, and now that I do it, I have found some potential benefits. 1, I don't think we have enough research around the thermic effect of water. So the thermic effect of food is the number of calories burned by the human body through the digestion process. So when we eat calories, when we eat macronutrients, our body has to use energy to digest that food. It's approximately 10% of total calories burned, or total calories consumed. So if you have 100 calories, it takes roughly 10 calories of calorie expenditure to burn the 100 calories you ate, so it's 90 net calories. And the amount of TEF isn't always 10%. It varies whether you're having protein, carbs, fats, or alcohol. I hypothesize that water has a thermic effect. So even though water has 0 calories, I think that the human body uses energy to with water, right? Digest water, whatever you want to call it. The consumption of water requires calories in a linear fashion to the amount of water consumed. So say it's only 1 calorie burned per 5 ounces of water. I think it's higher than that, but if that's the case, then if you consume 20 ounces of water, then you're burning 4 calories. If you consume 100 ounces of water, you're burning 20 calories. I dug around. There are some studies on this, but none are very good for a number of reasons. I'm not going to get that deep on this, but I looked at a few studies. I will link them below. I didn't really like any of the studies, mainly because the difference in water consumed wasn't big enough. Most people don't consume very much water, and if you compared a control group of not very much water and you held all other variables consistent, and then you had a group that was consuming 256 ounces of water per day over a long period of time, 3 months, 6 months, I think that the thermic effect of that water consumed, and it's not a real study because you can't hold all those variables equal, but if you could, I think the thermic effect would be something like, I think it'd be big. I think it'd be like 0.4 to 0.5 pounds a week of fat loss on the high end. We'll call it 0.25 to 0.5 pounds per week of fat loss. If you're thinking that's not that much, it's like 13 to 26 pounds per year just by pounding water all the time, which has additional benefits like better muscle contractions, help aids in digestion, cognitive function. I drink a lot of water. That is number 1. Number 2, food choice and macronutrient distribution, as well as their timing around strength training. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but I'm just gonna let the stream of consciousness go. I never ever strength train in a fasted state without BCAAs. I either have eaten some protein within a few hours of my strength training session, or if I have not, and that's usually a morning workout, if I wake up, just have some coffee in the morning, and I'm gonna go work out, so I am in a fasted state because I haven't consumed material calories since the night before. In that situation, I'll have 10 grams of BCAA, or really like 4 to 5 grams of leucine. If I strength train after just having BCAAs, I never don't have something post-workout. And the common mantra picked up by the evidence-based fitness community was eat a whole meal within 60 minutes of your strength training session and you'll be just fine. But if there's marginal progress to be had by optimizing the macronutrient ratio post-workout, and in my mind that means making sure you're getting enough protein to maximally synthesize muscle protein synthesis, pairing that protein with carbohydrate, not for the boost in insulin necessarily that you get from carbohydrate, even though you are, depending on the carb you consume, you're going to get more insulin secretion than just whey protein, even though whey protein does secrete more insulin than most people would think. But you also want to consume those carbs because you are replenishing the glycogen stores that you just used. Weightlifting, the primary energy source used in weightlifting is muscle glycogen, so carbs stored in muscle cells. And so those carbohydrates are going to, many of those carbohydrates are going to be used by the body to replenish the carbs that were just used in the strength training session. So I hypothesize that having 40 grams of protein and 40 grams of carbs right after your workout. And for shits and giggles, why not make them fast digesting carbohydrates and a faster digesting protein source, like whey protein and a simple sugar, candy, or I don't even want to admit this as like a health person, but we'll just say dates. Like dates are a good thing you can plug in there. But I have had protein shake where I'll just put 40 grams of table sugar or brown sugar because I think it tastes better in there. Wouldn't recommend that for most people, especially overweight or obese individuals, especially people with insulin sensitivity issues, which most overweight and obese individuals have, and also especially people who are dieting, because 40 grams of table sugar has basically the lowest possible satiating effect. So compare that to a more volume carbohydrate source that is just it's gonna keep you full longer. It's gonna make it easier to adhere to your calorie deficit. So I'm not telling people as a personal trainer to ingest 40 grams of sugar after every single one of your workouts, but I think that over time, if you get lean and I think that having fast digesting carb plus protein immediately after your workout is going to lead to better progress than one, delaying the time of that meal 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 90 minutes post-workout. Two, I lost my train of thought. This is a lot. I haven't made a YouTube video in a month. My mind jumped ahead to like balancing lifestyle versus doing everything you can to optimize fitness. But I'm talking about, remember, stuff that doesn't really matter, like it matters just a tiny bit to help with fitness progress. So does this mean you have to have whey protein and sugar the second you're done with your last set, otherwise like the world's gonna end? No, of course not. Like we need to balance. If you have a dinner that you're going to and you're meeting up with friends, family, whatever, and you just got done working out, you're gonna take a quick shower and go meet them, you wanna save more calories for that meal, yeah, you're fine to wait an hour to eat. But again, I think that macronutrient distribution and timing around workouts is something that because 90+% of my workouts over my 16 years of seriously lifting, I just think that there has been a compound effect on that very small amount of additional progress that is a reason that I walk around sub 10% body fat year round and have never used performance enhancing drugs, testosterone, like anything else in my entire life. Yeah. I think that answers that. I didn't intend for this to be a long video, but looks like that's the way this is headed. With the pre-workout meal, I actually have a little bit to add to that. If I am not training fasted, which is a solid amount of the time, the pre-workout meal sizing and food choice I make, I think matters. And what I will try to do is get at least 25 grams of protein, and depending on, not even really depending on how carb depleted I am, but kind of depending on how hungry I am, and also how much volume is going to be in the strength training session is going to dictate whether or not I pair that protein with a carb. But my carb choice is going to be, and this matters more the closer to the workout you get, but it's going to be a lower volume carb choice as we get closer to the workout. So what's a good example? If you think of 20 grams of carbohydrate of dates compared to 20 grams of carbohydrate of strawberries, like 20 grams of carbohydrate of strawberries is like almost 2 cups of strawberries. It's like this. But 20 grams of carbohydrates of dates is like, it's like 2.5 dates. It's like nothing. So the volume of 20 grams of carbohydrates of strawberries, even though it's the same amount of calories, is probably 5 or 6 times the volume of the dates. So if you think about putting that, and don't think about calories or macronutrients, just think about putting those objects down your pipe, and they're coming down here, and then 30 minutes or 45 minutes after, it's doing its thing, you're going to go be active and lift weights. you're going to want the lower volume food in your stomach, right? Like additional satiety benefits aren't relevant then. You're going to want to feel best during your strength training session to increase performance, because if performance is 3 to 5% increased times 150 to 250 workouts a year times 10, 20, 30 years, the slightly additional progress, like there's a trend here when it's the 111th most important thing you're doing, but you do it every single workout or every single day for 30 or 40 years over the course of a life, like that's when it ends up mattering. So food, the volume of your food choice in the pre-workout window is something I think about, so to maximize training performance. Should be so much easier if I just got on some test and sold supplements and told you to buy my supplements. That's how oh no. The third thing relates to sleep, and I'm not going to talk about the big rocks of sleep. Right? The big rocks of sleep are room temperature, 60 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. It's bed quality. It's pitch blackness. It's going to bed at the same time and waking up at roughly the same time each morning. It's sound, right? Like having it as quiet as possible. And I've had this conversation with many clients. Not everyone has the luxury of being a person without a family, or whether that's a luxury or not is debatable, but it's a luxury for sleep quality compared to having, a 1-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. But as quiet as you can make your sleeping arrangements, your sleeping arrangements. But these are two that I don't think many people think about, two things that I do that help me with sleep quality. The first is I taper my water intake as the day goes on. So not only do I try to avoid drinking much water right before bed, but I'm going hard with the water during the day, and I'm peeing, like I pee a lot. It doesn't take long, obviously, so it isn't a productivity hindrance, really, but I'm peeing every 60 to 90 minutes throughout the day. But then as that water intake comes down later in the day, and then I'm basically not drinking any water in the 2 hours before bed or any liquid at all, that has prevented me, and this is just self-experimentation, that's prevented me from having to wake up during the night to go to the bathroom, which improves sleep quality means that you're not going to need as much total sleep from time you lay down to time you wake up. And anecdotally, tapering water and not having water right before bed has led to me not having to wake up during the night when I used to have to wake up during the night all the time. So that has been a slight positive. And the second one is related to caffeine. Caffeine is a safe compound that safe up to 400 milligrams per day in healthy adults based on all available scientific literature. There's also performance enhancing benefits of caffeine taken before various types of endurance training. So caffeine has a ton of upside, but taken too late in the day can negatively impact sleep. So caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 7 hours, which means that after taking it 5 to 7 hours later, you still have 50% of the caffeine you ingested in your system. So really, I wake up at 6 o'clock, for example. I'm not going to drink any caffeine after 10 a.m. And sometimes when I'm really on it, I'll only have a bit in the morning, like in the 6 to 8 or 8:30 window, and that'll be it for the day. And when I can do that, that's when my sleep quality is the best. So and the opposite of that is when I've been struggling and when I've been behind and when I've made bad decisions that got me in a procrastinating place, and then it was 7 p.m. and I was tired but I had a lot of work to do, and I have a coffee or I have an energy drink, my sleep quality suffers. I've talked to people who can have caffeine later in the day, their sleep quality doesn't suffer. Good for them. If you're one of those people, amazing. But something that has worked for me, and if you're struggling with sleep, is, and try limiting caffeine completely if you want to, although there are benefits, but and good for you if you can do that, but cutting caffeine out of my day except for right away in the morning is something that, along with tapering my water intake throughout the day, has led to improved sleep quality. Next. Number 4, I always include protein in my meals. And this is something that I do without thinking about it. It feels best to me. Talking to a client of mine he's not a fitness guy, but he's just a really smart guy. I don't know if it's optimal for longevity. Basically, I'm going to do a book review. Let me know if you're interested in book reviews, but I'm going to do a book review on Anti-Fragile. And to have protein at every meal over the course of an entire life is not Anti-Fragile. And there could be some potential downsides at the cellular level. But at a higher level, and back to the beginning of the video, I'm not talking about optimizing for health. Eating protein at basically every meal does a few things. It maximizes total muscle protein synthesis, which requires about 25 grams of protein every 4 to 5 hours to be stimulated. Muscle protein synthesis is correlated with hypertrophy when in a calorie surplus, or retention of muscle when in a calorie deficit. So there's that benefit. Protein is most satiating of proteins, carbs, fats, and alcohol, of all calories, basically. Protein has the highest thermic effect of food. Before, I talked about the potential thermic effect of water, which I can't believe is completely overlooked by the evidence-based community. Anyway, protein, when you consume protein, you burn, might be a little rusty on this, I believe it's about 30%. I think 20 to 35% is the range. So almost between 1/5 and more than 1/3 of your calories ingested. So if you eat 100 grams of protein, it's 400 calories, but you're really only consuming 300 calories because some of those calories, you get it. Protein has a higher thermic effect than any of the other macronutrients. So when you consume protein, the highest percentage of those of total calories needs to be used to aid in the digestion of that protein. Doing that over a long period of time, many decades, is going to each day slightly decline. Well, and now that I'm thinking about it, the thermic effect of food isn't driven by meal frequency. So saying I have protein in every single meal doesn't mean that I'm burning more calories via the thermic effect of food. All it means is that I'm more likely to be eating more protein each day, which is in turn burning more calories via the thermic effect of food, which is effectively reducing my total calorie intake if we're looking at the energy equation, calories in versus calories out, which is what drives weight gain and weight loss. But increased muscle protein synthesis, improves satiety. Eating a carb plus protein meal compared to a carb only meal, you're going to get hungrier sooner after consuming the carb only meal. So it likely prevents overeating to an extent, and leading to more total protein intake, which is a driver of the thermic effect of food, effectively bringing my net calories down slightly. But again, we know, Mike, slightly times a lifetime is actually not slightly, it's a lot. Number 5, if I am in the gym and I feel any of the precursors to injury, which I don't think I've ever articulated even to myself, but I just know them when I feel them, tightness, pinchiness, going overhead usually goes smoothly, but it feels crunchy. It feels, certain muscles feel tight. When I feel what I know to be precursors to injury, I modify my workout on the spot. And this is not something I've historically done. I used to get banged up a lot, heavy squatting, heavy deadlifting. This is something that I've incorporated more in the last 3 to 4 years, and it's really helped me in reducing the frequency and intensity of injuries, the frequency and severity of injuries. So when I feel those feelings, there are a few paths I might take. I might try swapping the movement for a different, very similar movement. For example, something as simple as swapping a chest-supported dumbbell rear delt fly for a standing face pull to hit the same muscles on the same movement pattern, on a very similar movement pattern, and hope that it feels better. I might, if I have time, I don't always have time, but I might do some soft tissue work. The most relevant I can think of would be an upper trap, mid trap, lower trap, shoulder tightness, and I'll go for 5 or 7 minutes, and I'll pull out one of my lacrosse balls and get up against the wall or get on the ground if I really want some intensity and get in there with a lacrosse ball. Getting over a foam roller and doing some thoracic extensions on the foam roller. Stretching my lats is a big one because I have fairly tight lats. Or spending time and doing more high rep warm-up sets, varying the tempo. I often slow down the tempo of the warm-up sets, trying to get more blood in the muscles, trying to get warmer basically, and see if that leads to me feeling better so that I can ratchet up the intensity without getting hurt. Sometimes I'll just change the rep scheme altogether. If I'm going to hit 3x5 heavy on an overhead press, or say on a seated dumbbell overhead press, I just won't hit 3x5 heavy. I'll do higher reps, or instead of trying to work up to a straight sets, like 3 heavy work sets, I'll just pyramid up. And so I'll see what I can take. If I'm planning on whatever it is, if I'm planning on doing a movement where I'm going to be using 80 pounds for some heavier sets, instead I'll just do a bunch of sets of 10, and I'll start at 40, and if that feels good, I'll move to 50, and if that feels good, I'll move to 60, and if I'm there, maybe I'll do 2 work sets at 60, and then I'll move on to the next move. So increasing like stretching or mobility work before doing the movement, changing the rep scheme of the movement, switching movements entirely, or I have no problem skipping that move and moving on to the next thing, or changing the body part or group of body parts I'm training that day. Or, and this happens every other month, this happens 6 times a year, maybe once a quarter, maybe like 4 times a year, I'll walk into the gym, and whether it's something that's bothering me, like a local specific issue, or if it's systemic fatigue, if it's maybe something that's brought on by a lot of stress, lack of sleep, whatever, and I'm just not feeling it, I'll just walk out of the gym. I'll be like, today is not the day. And I know from like a finish every battle, like very tough mindset, like that isn't optimal, or that's not the philosophy by which you should live your life, but I do it. Once a quarter, I'll start warming up, and I'll do like a few reps of something. I'll be like, today's not the day. Like, this isn't happening. I feel like I'm gonna get hurt. Something feels pinchy. Something feels off. Like, this doesn't feel right. Go home. Go back and get it tomorrow. Yeah. 5 things. 5 things of the list of 25 that I actually had this list going from a year ago when I initially brought this up. So it's fun because I can just pull from that list the things that I feel like talking about right now. So this can be an ongoing series. I'm not going to do 5 videos like this in a row because I think it would be boring, and I want to mix it up, and I want to try some new things on this channel. But if you have interest in this, hit the like button, let me know in the comments, and I will take that feedback into consideration in potentially doing number 6 through 10 of the 25 things. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys. A lot of people, a lot of DMs, a lot of tweets at me, a lot of like, where are you? Why aren't you posting content? Some like a little bit entitled, like, where's my content? like that kind of mentality. And I'm just living my life. I think it's weird living in the spotlight, like not the actual spotlight, but just I'm very affected by what's going on around me and the people around me, and I don't think that just talking and then responding to feedback and then modifying my behavior for that feedback and optimizing like that, like I don't think that gets me in the place where I want to go. And so having periods where I go a little quiet, go a little dark, like read a lot, consume a lot, like get in like a more artistic place, have like longer in-depth conversations with smart people in person rather than the more like surface level back and forth people with strangers on the internet and like at high frequency versus like going super deep with one person. There's just, I know I don't need to justify why I haven't been posting, but part of me feels like I do because you guys are my homies. And yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. See you very soon. Bye.